So in today's video, I want to tell my story of exactly how I made my first $2.5 million by the age of 22. And I'm going to be completely honest in this video in saying that I had a lot of luck and a lot of circumstances that benefited my journey. But I believe that it's less about the luck itself and more about the posture of the person so that they can recognize and make use of that luck. But I'm not going to get too philosophical in this video. I'm really just going to tell my story from ground zero, from back when I was a broke 16 or 17-year-old kid living in my parents' basement. I was homeschooled and I had a pretty entrepreneurial family, so my parents actually very much encouraged me to do my own self-studies and everything, which if I have a form of privilege, it's that my parents gave me from an early age a love of learning. And so imagine yourself, a 16, 17-year-old kid living in your parents' basement with a big dream and no idea how to achieve it. That was basically me. I had just ended a relationship with a girl who, young love, I was crazy about, and I realized that it wouldn't work out because, I didn't really want to go to college. She really did, and it became super long distance, and also our lives just started to grow kind of apart. And I decided, you know what, if I've lost somebody that I really care about, I really need to make this work because that's a massive sacrifice. And around that time as well, my family went through a house fire, which, really crippled our ability to just operate as a family. And we went from, pretty much having everything we would need, a really nice multiple six-figure income from my parents and, them really setting up, the finances of the household, to not really having the time or attention or energy needed to sustain, the business that they were running, which led to a lot of issues. At the time, I really felt this almost as like a tug on my heart, almost like a pull to figure out a way to create enough wealth for myself that if anything were to happen to my future family, if anything were to happen to my current family, that I could step in and do something about it. And really, I just kind of felt like useless in this scenario because this was the first time where, in my life we were like, because we weren't by any means rich, but we never worried about finances. And then all of a sudden, we're counting receipts and making sure we keep all of them. And then we have like a very, very thin daily budget. And I remember my dad sitting down and telling us, look, I don't think we could do Christmas this year. There's a lot going on right now, and we just don't know, how much the house is going to be insured or not or whatever. And there's all kinds of up in the air, scary things. And I remember, looking in the mirror at myself and just being ashamed of the fact that as a young man, there was nothing I could do for my parents. And I've always had a very close relationship with my dad in particular. He's going to be the best man at my wedding in September. I mean, he's one of my closest mentors and best friends. And, it wasn't always like that, but we've really worked on our relationship, and it's become this very symbiotic thing where, he'll give me ideas, I'll give him ideas, and we even do a little business back and forth, which is a lot of fun. And so it just kind of crushed me to see this man who I look up to so much, in a state of so much despair and pain. And I'm not trying to just give you my sob story just to give it to you. It really is really relevant because, those were the days when I decided to kick into gear and start both working on myself as a man and to start developing my business. Not everybody has the blessing of a very tight-knit, close relationship with their father. In our culture today, not a lot of fathers are that present for their children, but I had the blessing of a father who lived at home, I was even homeschooled, so I had a very close relationship with him. Just to see him depressed, properly clinically depressed for the first time in my life, it was just soul crushing because he's always kind of been invincible. He's like Superman to me, And I remember this one time in particular, he was having a panic attack back in the bedroom of the rental home that we were in, and he was on the treadmill just trying to keep his body moving. And I remember my mom calls me from across the living room. She says, Trey, I need you to come in here and talk to your dad. I don't know what to tell him. He's basically breaking down. And my mom kind of knew that we had a good relationship, and I just happened to be the only one in the house. I think my siblings were gone. And she was just like, can you just come and help me? I don't know what to tell him. And I come into the room, and this image is just kind of burned into my eyes of my dad, shirtless, sweating, stressed to the bone, anxious, and he's walking on the treadmill, literally just to keep himself from passing out from all the pressure that he's under. And there's just certain things that I can't get into about this season of life for my family out of respect for both of my parents and, and everything that, just a lot went down. I don't want to share all of the details because those are just some things that as a family you kind of put in a box and you put in the past and you don't really open up again. But there was more than just financial. And so I just went back there, and I don't even remember necessarily what I said, but it was just the first time that I saw a pillar in my life that was like properly gone. You know, it was almost like the safety net had just been taken out from underneath me, and I realized it was like, oh my gosh, I have to figure this out. Because in the back of my head, I always thought, oh, you know, like, we'll always have money, we'll always be fine. But I realized, like, no matter how much you have, you can only ever properly rely on your Heavenly Father and yourself, and that's it. Like, no parent, no spouse, no best friend, no business partner. That's the only true safety net you get. And I know that for myself, I'm very security driven. So I if my bank account goes beneath a certain figure, even though it's got, you know, more in it than I ever thought it would, I start to get anxious. Like, I've got more in my bank account today than I would need for 3 years of my personal expenses, and I'm fine. But still, when that number goes down, I get anxious. I even kind of get depressed. And like, that's probably not the most clinically, you know, healthy thing, but that is how I am, and I've come to terms with it, and I've learned to see it as an advantage. So fast forward a couple months, you know, I had to get rid of some friends. This is when, like I said, I broke up with my girlfriend at the time. I just really isolated myself, and I went into a very dark place where I created a lot of distance from my family, and I regret it to this day. But I just was like, you know what? Look, I'm going to figure out my own thing. I can't rely on this anymore. And I almost got this, like, you know, I remember at the time, but this was a few weeks before I broke up with this girl, she said, you know, Trey, you have, like, a level of independence that I've never seen in anybody. You know, it's almost like you have to prove to everybody that you can take care of yourself and that you don't need anyone. And it was like, in that moment, I realized, wow, like, you know, and that, well, not even in that moment, thinking back on it as a more mature version of myself, I realized that that was really my motivation for getting into entrepreneurship, was a needing to prove that I don't need anybody, which I've had to learn to grow out of in order to grow my company further. Now that we've got a team, you know, I've got people that log into my bank account and make decisions about the money. You know, when you scale up an actual company, you have to learn how to let people back in, and that was what really crippled me for a very long time. But anyway, that's the beginning of it. That's the dramatic start. And then, so I started just doing a bunch of random stuff. So at the time, I had a photography business, but I lost all of my photography gear in that house fire. So I didn't have a source of income, and I didn't really have, like, a way to make money. And, you know, I'm looking around at, like, chaos in my life. Like, my family's figuring it out. I'm figuring it out. We don't really know what the future looks like right now. You know, rent's kind of month to month. Like, we're figuring out a lot all at once. And, you know, granted, fast forward to today, like, my parents never ended up needing any of my help. Like, they figured it all out, and I want to give them that credit, because it's not like I was the savior or anything. I'm not trying to position myself in a way that isn't fair. It's more so that I felt a call to step up just out of a sense of, like, not realizing how little I was compared to this situation. But they ended up figuring it out, which is a huge blessing, and we're really back to where we once were, if not even better, because the foundation just got stronger after all of that, which is an amazing blessing. But, you know, fast forward a few months after all this sort of happens, we're in this rental home, and I decide, all right, I'm going to start a business. And, you know, you can see this sort of whiteboard right here. If you just scroll back on my Instagram, it's literally still a post that's there. I blurred some of it even on the Instagram post itself, because there's just some personal stuff that I didn't want to put out in the public. But I wrote all these things. So this is what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to donate a bunch of money. I'm going to build a thing. And I've always been sort of a driven kid. I've always just kind of been somebody that, like, almost likes a challenge to rise above. I like a little bit of, like, turmoil and something to work through, because I just felt like I always had a very cushy life, and I wanted a challenge. So some weird twisted part of me was like, finally something to rise above almost. And so I took the opportunity and I did that. And so I wrote on my whiteboard all these goals that I have. And one of them was like, I want to make $30,000 a month online. I had no idea how I was going to do it. I had seen other people do it. I'd followed some people in the space. It was literally just like, I'd seen YouTubers who make money. That's it. And, like, you know, the finance space has grown like crazy since then. We've got way more business influencers in the YouTube space. And I grew up on YouTube. I had a Minecraft YouTube channel. I had like a gaming YouTube channel. I had like a channel for tech decks. If you sort by most popular on this channel, literally the most popular video is me and my brother playing with those little finger skateboards. So I've been on YouTube for forever, and I saw these people making money on Amazon, making money with like drop shipping, making money with stocks and trading and crypto and all this stuff. And so I figured the best place for me to start was to launch a course, because I had shot a few weddings myself. So I had, collected, $15,000-$20,000 over the course of about a year shooting weddings for, couples who were engaged and getting married and everything. That was kind of my primary source of income at the time. And so I figured, look, I'm like 16 going on 17, and I figured it's a cool story. It's like I'm young, I've shot some weddings, maybe I could leverage that. So that's what I did. I started uploading YouTube videos on the topic of photography, reviewing different lenses and gear, and I built a bit of an audience. It took me like 2 or 3 months to kind of build a little bit of traction. And this is just, naming videos based on SEO keyword tags that I knew would get search results, everything like that, kind of using my YouTube instincts. And I grew a little bit of a platform. And at the end of it, I turned on this course. It was like a $300 course. And it was basically just like, it was like 4 hours of content. It was like, an hour on like sales and marketing and how to attract the clients, like an hour on like, how to actually be a good service delivery person, how to deal with the clients, contracts and everything. I even put a GoPro on my camera and like filmed myself shooting a full wedding so people could learn, kind of how I go about my workflow and all of that. And it sold extremely well. So I was really, really surprised. This was my first real shot at like launching a course. And to this day, I kind of regret my next move, which I'll share with you in a moment. But that was my first real money. And so month 1 of launching something, I made $10,000. That was crazy to me. And I remember literally the first thing that I did was like my brother was into paintball. And so I bought us new paintball guns. So I bought a paintball gun, bought him a paintball gun, because he is the kind of person where he needs a lot of like hobbies and things to do. And he's very much like, he has his little like escapes, you know what I mean? And so he was very into paintball at the time. He was going like every weekend with his buddies just to kind of get out of the home, because the home was kind of a weird place at the time. And I had, done a lot of travel and tried to get out of the house as well. Like, I was running the photography business, and a client flew me out to Seattle to film something for their church. And so like, I was trying to get out of the house as well. That was how he got out of the house. So I figured, what, here's a new paintball gun. And then I bought like my brothers, I bought us like a new like gaming console. I think I bought like a virtual reality headset or something like that. I can't remember exactly what I did, but I didn't know what to do with the money. Like I had no idea. I was such an idiot. So I blew through like, I had 10 grand. I blew through like 5 of it immediately, because I'd never made more than that in the span of 4 months. So that was an insane change for me. And I remember launching the program, and like my dad was just out of my bedroom like doing laundry, and it was the end of the day, and I'd seen the numbers come in. Like that first day was like 3 grand, and then they just kept coming in throughout the rest of the month, and ended up being $10,000. And I leaned out the door and I was like, Dad, like, come check this out. It was such a cool moment for me, because that was when I realized I was really onto something. Like, it was one thing to have a $3,000 check. It was another thing for my dad to come in and like pat me on the back, be like, and he's always called me buddy. He's like, buddy, this is amazing. Like, this is incredible. Like, I'm so proud of you, all these things. And it was cool because it was kind of like a glimmer of light in like a very hopeless time in my life, because I was like, I legitimately didn't know what the future looked like for anything. And so it was just like, okay, I've built this thing, it's working. But then, that month goes by and sales completely stopped. So I was like, what's next? And this is where I made my first mistake. So I assumed that, sales stopped, so therefore I should launch a new offer. And I thought I need to go into a completely new industry to launch a new offer. So instead of, with my modern day wisdom of understanding how business works, I would just say, dude, like, scale the current offer, launch a higher ticket one-to-one coaching on the back end of it. There's things I could have done to take that 10,000 and turn it into 50 or 60. Launch an in-person retreat, launch a lower ticket, run some advertisements and build your audience further, partner with other influencers in the space. There's stuff that I know today that I just didn't know back then. I wasn't like a business tycoon or anything. Like, I had just kind of figured it out, right? The thing I did right was I started selling one-to-one calendar spots on my calendar. So I just put literally like a little software on my Instagram and in the link of my YouTube videos. People could schedule one-to-one times for like $80 an hour. And so that became like a consistent, like, I think I was making like $400 a week or something like that. It's like a very consistent flow. So it's like, okay, I'm making, would that be like $1,800 a month from that, just one-to-one consults with some clients that want to learn about the gear I use, want to learn about sales, want to learn whatever. It was just total strangers. I would hop on the phone. We'd end up getting on Skype. Literally, I would call them. I would text them, my Skype account, ask them to get on the Skype call, and then I would just answer questions for like 45 minutes. And so I made like $400 a week doing that. I had the course, which kind of dripped. But then I thought that I wasn't making enough money. Therefore, the industry that I was serving was the wrong industry. Classic grass is greener syndrome. So I started niche hopping. I went from wedding photography coaching to, all things, I started selling a drop shipping course. I started selling an Amazon course. I started selling a sales course. I started selling courses on building funnels. I started selling courses on how to build a website, courses on YouTube. So I started doing all kinds of different coaching, and I was literally just charging an hourly rate. So I had that link. People could book a time on my calendar, and then it could tell me what topic they want to talk about. So I started making videos on all kinds of different subjects, and just, I would hop on these coaching calls and I would take 2 or 3 a day, and I started raising my prices like 100, 200 bucks an hour, which was cool. But the problem was I didn't have a singular focus. So I was making money, but I didn't have like a singular vision of where I was going or how I was going to scale this business. I thought that doing more meant more money. But in reality, though I did make a little bit more money, like an extra grand or two a month on top of the 2 or 3 that I was bringing in, it didn't scale very well, and I ended up doing more. And I started working like 5 times as harder for only like a 0.7, X higher return. So I then got to thinking, okay, what did I do wrong just now? I'm working like crazy. I'm working on a ton of projects, and this is not leading to anything. It's almost like I'm making full-time income. Don't get me wrong. And I was obviously celebrating that. Like, I had gone full-time at this point. $4,000 or $5,000 a month is enough to literally not have to get a job or anything. So I'd figured that out. The problem was, like, I was trying to actually scale a business. Like, I had put on my whiteboard $30,000 a month, and by God, I was going to do it no matter what it took, right? And so this is when I started making some key decisions. I decided, okay, what are my core skills, the things I am the best at out of everything. So I started to identify what are those things that I can really do better than most people. And I decided that like the common trend among all of the things I was doing for other people was like marketing and sales. Really, it was like marketing, sales, and online education. So I was selling coaching, I was helping other people who had education businesses, and I was helping them market them and like coaching them on it and everything. Like, those clients that I worked with would always do the best, and also I had the most fun doing it, and it seemed to just be a trend in what I did. And it was around this time that I invested into my first like business mentor. So I paid this person like $2,000, and it was just like one meeting every week with them for a month. And to this day, this person and I have like become good friends. Like, we've shared a lot of back and forth together, and he's just somebody that I really respect and admire in the business space. Nowadays, his business do like $1 million a month or more, but back when I invested with him, he did like $30,000 or $40,000 a month maybe. And so I was able to like form a bit of a friendship and a relationship, and he's just become a good friend, really, which is really cool. And I don't want to drop any names just because I don't want to send them the wrong sort of traffic, and also I want to keep these investments generally private, because I've found that if I just say, hey, this is the person that I credit to all my success, then it's almost like it invalidates what I've built. So if you want to know who they are, you can happily just message me and I'll tell you privately. But for the sake of the YouTube video, it's interesting how the industry works. You tend to invalidate your own results when you share who you've invested in, because everybody can then credit them with your results, which isn't completely fair. But I did learn one key thing from this person, and it was the idea of clarity and essentialism. So, I had a lot of soft skills and I had a lot of knowledge, but I wasn't really clearly, channeling that and focusing on one key outcome. So if I wanted to get to $20,000 or $30,000 a month, really, he told me that's just one offer, one niche, one message, one traffic source, everything like that. So just one all the way down your system. And then instead of starting new things and trying new ideas and tacking on new, softwares and projects and everything, which, felt like good work because I was working harder, it's really just taking what works and scaling it as far as you can to its extreme. So that's kind of the end of my first year of business. And my entire first year of business, I made about $25,000. With everything mixed, and about $10,000 with coaching in general. But moving into this second year, I took that idea of essentialism and focus, and I decided, what's my one niche, what's my one offer, what's the one thing I'm selling, and then how am I going to sell it? And that was the golden question for me. What am I selling? How am I selling it? It got me very clear on what it's going to take to get to 6 figures a year, which is kind of that first benchmark. So in 2019, I started focusing heavily on helping other people, market themselves online in any capacity. I kind of ran an agency, which was like a service delivery based company where I would like run ads and build funnels for people, which eventually transitioned into a coaching business. So I had a done for you angle where I built funnels and I built sales processes for people's, companies, whether it was like a coffee shop or it was like a coaching business, whichever it was, I would do that. And my first client was actually a coffee shop. And my thinking went something like, the trend across all of my clients was I helped them all market themselves. And if I could just turn marketing into a service, I could charge more for it, which would make each client worth more, which would mean I'd spend less time and make more money. And it was generally true, but I still didn't have focus. I was working with coffee shops. I was working with a couple coaches. I was working with a couple people that sold services. I was working with a couple people that, like, I worked with a real estate agent. I worked with literally anybody I could sign, and I was still very greedy and I didn't have focus. So I sort of spent a year generally just charging more, because now I have very clear services with very clear deliverables and outcomes. And though I made 6 figures that year, I crossed the $100,000 barrier, it was very, very messy. So I kind of did like a hybrid agency slash coaching model, which was very messy. And to be honest, I was more of a coach than I was even an agency owner, because I ended up just helping my clients a ton and coaching them and helping them understand the ideas I was teaching them. And that would get them better results than the actual service itself. So in year 3, I decided to double down on that angle and decide, look, if agency isn't quite working for me, and I just happen to be, I just end up being a better coach. I end up getting better results for people when I spend time with them and I show them the ideas and I give them templates and everything for them to implement it themselves. Maybe that's what I should do. So year 3 is where I cracked the $300,000 mark for the whole year. And that's probably one of the best years of my entrepreneurial career. It's when I first started seeing $10,000, $20,000 months consistently. And I believe I even had my first $30,000 month towards September, October of the year. And I just focused heavily on coaching and specifically helping market online service-based business owners or coaches. So I would show them how to organically market themselves on Facebook and YouTube. I would teach them sales. I would show them, how to deliver for their clients. I would show them how to keep track of their books and their finances. And I really just went all in that niche. And this is also when I made my second investment into another mentor. Like I said, I did $300,000 that year. It was towards the beginning of the year that I joined my first proper mastermind. So my first, investment was $2,000 and it was one-on-one. My second investment was $6,000, which was like almost all that I had at the time in the bank, but I got a group setting and I had other people that I could collaborate with and learn from, and had a community element that was extremely helpful for me. So I was probably one of the most active people in their Facebook group. I was getting help, asking questions, connecting with people, saying, hey, how would you do this, or learning different ideas. And I was also one of the youngest people there too, which felt pretty cool. And it was in that mastermind that I decided to focus on coaching and kind of drop the done for you side and not do that anymore, because I just found that I got better results for people and people loved working with me. And I realized, look, the best vehicle is just teaching people things that work and showing them how to do it so that you can transform their lives and their businesses. So that's what I did. And I focused on that for the whole year. I put up consistent YouTube videos. I put up consistent Facebook group posts. I made content. I took sales calls. I did some DM prospecting, and I just went crazy about it. And it was this year that I saw, like I said, my first $300,000 year, which was an incredible achievement for me at the time. It felt amazing, but I knew I wasn't done yet. You see, moving into 2020, I decided it's time for me to move out of my parents' house because, I can't keep working from here. I need my own space. I need to level up my environment and create a space where I can really thrive and sort of set a new standard for myself. So I moved out, and I immediately moved into this luxurious, it was like $4,000 a month. It was this penthouse apartment in downtown Indianapolis. For those of you know, Massachusetts Avenue. It was right on that strip. It's just like the nicest spot in the state, and I figured I was going to go all in and just commit to really being the sort of a person that does like $1 million a year. And the sort of person that does $1 million a year wouldn't even blink at $4,000 a month in rent. And that's kind of how I thought about it. And it's not really good financial advice on paper, but it worked for me because I had to corner myself into building a business where that apartment didn't feel unreasonable almost. And I remember my dad coming to co-sign it with me, and he's like, hey dude, you know that this is really dumb, right? And I said, yeah, I know, but I really think I could build something that makes this apartment cheap for me. And again, like I said, if I have a form of privilege, it's in having supportive people around me, and that was one of the key things. If he wasn't willing to co-sign, I don't think I would have built the business I have today. So I moved out around November of 2019. So moving into 2020, I was in this beautiful, luxurious apartment downtown with a gym next door, great food options and everything. All natural light. It had this beautiful staircase, and a lot of people who've been following me for a while remember, the stairs behind me and all these things. So I was living there for about 2 years after. And this would be the place where I grew my business to $1 million a year. But before that happened, we all know, what kicked in, the massive virus that spread. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say it or not, but it really changed all of our lives and really had a massive impact on how we operate. And unfortunately, because of my situation, it really locked me away pretty much completely alone in this apartment. So I didn't have anybody around. I was getting to know one person, and that was the person I am now engaged to today, and I barely saw my family. So my days basically looked like getting up at 6 or 7 a.m., going to the gym, getting back to my apartment and working 8 to 10 hours that day, and then driving 10 minutes to see, my girlfriend at the time. Maybe every other day I would do this and see her in the evenings, and then come back and then work more. And that was my routine, and that was my schedule that entire year. So I focused hard. I took the opportunity that the pandemic gave me and I used it to grow my business. It was an extremely focused season of my life, and I felt very blessed that though most people were going through a lot of financial turmoil, I decided to take this time and use it to create a relentless focus towards my goals. And if you know me personally, this is the time in my life where I was the most unreachable. Like, my phone was off, it was in a drawer in my kitchen, I wouldn't touch it. I was extremely focused every single day on my business, making content, building a better program, selling more clients. I would take 3 or 4 hours a day of sales calls, I'd build a better program, and I would, put out content to attract more sales calls. That was all I did the entire year. And I always had this number in the back of my head. I always had this number of $100,000 a month. For some reason, that number just felt to me like, if I could do $100,000 a month, I will literally never worry about money ever again. And it scared me. I legitimately didn't think I could do it. I had a lot of fear around it. There was a lot of scarcity in my thinking. I was like, maybe I can, maybe I can't. Am I risking it all? I have no idea. But I decided I'm gonna commit and make failure just literally not an option, because I'm stuck in this apartment and I've signed a 12-month lease for $4,000 a month. Like, I'm going to do this. And so this is my advice to people at this stage who are trying to get to the next level, is you have to create that almost artificial pressure in that corner that you have to be in. Like, nobody was telling me to do this. Nobody needed me to do this at this point. I'd already made $300,000 a year. If I just made $300,000 again this year, I would be way ahead of most 20-year-olds. But that's just not how I work. Like, I have some sort of like an internal compass that just says, look, you have to keep pushing, you have to keep growing, because, and I think really what it is I hate the idea, and hate's the right word, I hate the idea of lost potential. And so I took my coaching program that I had built at the time, and I said, I'm going to get this to $100,000 a month no matter what, or otherwise I'm going to regret not having gotten it there. So that sense of like that fear of regret, plus what I knew my financial life would look like at $100,000 a month. And by the way, I was keeping like 60, 70, maybe even 80% of all of this at the end of the day, because I had no team members. It was just a one-man show, which was a really dumb idea, but that's what I decided to do, which meant like 5 or 6 hours a day of sales calls, 2 hours a day of recording content, another 2 hours a day of coaching calls, and everything. Like, it was insane. But I did it. I managed caffeine and all. I did it, and it was insane. But it was the first month of 2021, which would be my 3rd year in business. No, that would be my 4th year in business. The first month of 2021, I barely cracked by $1,000, a $100,000 single month in my business. And I remember writing in my journal at the time, I had gotten into cigars over the past year or so, just because it's like, I don't know, young male in business, cigar just kind of fits the whole identity of it. But I went to this cigar lounge that I went to every now and again, and I just lit up a cigar and I sat there and I started crying. And, I'm not much of a crier. I'm definitely maybe a bit more on the sensitive side for, the male spectrum, but I'm by no means a crier. And to feel and sit there and realize, like, I could actually do this. Like, I could actually build a massive business. $100,000 a month to me wasn't $100,000 in the bank now. What that meant to me was it was proof of concept. It was proof that if I decide to do something and I commit the time needed to doing it, I can do it. And it was almost like a mental door opened of like, okay, what's your standard now? So now that you can do this, what's your standard? Where are you willing to settle? So the conversation stopped being about what can I achieve, and it became about what am I willing to settle for. So that's what moved me into the year of 2021, which is when I realized that I simply cannot build the business that I want to build as a one-man show. And I'd had this belief in my head for the longest time that nobody would want to work for me. Why would somebody want to work for a 21-year-old kid? It made no sense to me. I don't know why somebody would want to be on my payroll. Even though I was bringing in all this money, I had this false belief of like, oh, nobody would want to work for me. I'm not legit enough. I'm not old enough, whatever. But I remember having this call. I paid it was like $8,000 for some time on this guy's calendar. He was doing $500,000 a month with a business that helped people start and grow like marketing agencies. So that was his coaching business. And I said, dude, like, how did you grow? He had like a team of 30 people working for him, salespeople, coaches, everything like that. And he said, honestly, Trey, like, I think you're really doubting yourself. I think you can build a much larger team than you realize you can right now. And he's like, it's that humility of thinking, why would people want to work for you, that will force you to create a company and environment that will make people want to work for you. And that was extremely inspiring to me, because I realized that I had the gift of like almost like self-doubt, which at that point, when you start to deal with people, it's important that you don't assume that they are more excited to work for you than they actually are, that you actually create an environment where they're excited to work for you. Because I knew if I wanted to go from $1 million to $3 to $5 million, which again, continued to scare me, I had to bring on people. So 2021 was really the year where I halved my margins. I went from like 80% margins to like 60% almost. And I decided to just hire people, sales reps, coaches. I started playing with people on the back end, like operations managers, everything like that. I just figured like, look, if I can get good at leading a team, that's going to be the skill set that really benefits me, because I knew that all that I really had was soft skills applied to my business. And if I had more people with the same soft skills and same mindset and everything and same self-discipline applied, it would just create an insane synergy that I was just super excited about. And that is, my 2021. It was literally like anywhere from like $70,000 to $100,000 a month the entire year. And I was just trying to hire the entire time. And I was bringing people on, letting them go, testing different relationships, and trying to figure out, how do I create an actual company here? Because I am getting burnt out doing all of this myself. And this is where, my now fiance came in and gave me something that really helped me a lot, because I was really having a hard time bringing on the right people and getting them, the sorts of results within my own company that I wanted, getting them to make as much as I wanted them to make and enjoy the work as much as I wanted them to enjoy it. And she told me something that was really helpful. At the time when I was first getting to know her, she worked at a coffee shop, and at this coffee shop, they honestly had like an incredible team culture. They really had like just a lot of trust and accountability. And she said something that like completely changed my paradigm. And she said, Trey, you sell people on working in your program all the time. Like they'll pay you, thousands of dollars to join your course and your coaching and everything. But like, why aren't you able to sell somebody on working for you? Like if you can influence people in like 60 minutes with a phone call to buy your thing, like why can't you influence them over months to commit to your vision? And that's when everything just changed completely for me. I realized that I was taking the soft skill of influence and sales and I was using it to attract clients, but I wasn't really influencing my team, and I wasn't influencing them to believe in the mission, believe in the company, and really commit within my own economic sort of umbrella. So I went all of 2021 trying to figure that out. I wrapped up the year at about 900,000 to $1 million, somewhere around there, and I profited about 650,000, 600,000, somewhere around there in that year. Which brings me to 2022, which is the current year that I'm in as I'm filming this, and it is currently July 2nd. And this year so far, we have done just about $1 million exactly in total volume. But what's crazy about that is an entire tenth of that revenue came in a single week, about a week ago, when I had a company retreat out in Seattle with my top sales guys, my setter, and my coaches. And so very recently, I'm realizing what I'm really onto by putting the right people in place, having an incredible product market fit, and just building a great company culture. And so this year, I should wrap up about 1.5 to 2 million, somewhere in that range, maybe a little bit under, because right now, moving forward, I'm about to get married in September. I've got my honeymoon on all of October, and we're just rebuilding our products sort of for the rest of the year. So we're not super sales focused right now, but it's been a wild ride, and every single year has taught me lessons that have applied to the next year, and it's just been my job to stay a student and stay consistent. This is the first time in my life that I've built a business that legitimately runs itself. My team is incredible. I give them tons of credit for their ability to creatively problem solve. And to be honest, like though I'm the face of the business, when you invest in our products and services, you'll meet the real people who actually get the results that you see for our clients on this YouTube channel, who actually are in charge of the revenue coming in and everything. Like honestly, all I do now is work on the product and lead the team, and that's it. And I've learned that leadership is less about being a great leader, and it's just about putting the right people in place and then just getting out of their way. And I was overcomplicating. I thought it was about being a great leader and everything, but that's only like 20-30% of it. So much more of it is attracting the right people. And so over the next 3 to 5 years, my goal is that by the time I'm 25, we are doing $10 million a year, and that's going to happen through scaling up my team, creating a better offer, even better client results, better, customer experience, and creating a more fundamentally life-changing, fleet of offers. The second thing is going more mass market. So we're going to create products that could literally take anybody, beginner, unexperienced, they've never run a business before, to making anywhere from $100 to $200 a day online by selling those calendar spots that I was selling back when I was a beginner. Building an audience and attracting people to just pay them for their time. You don't have to learn sales. You don't have to learn much marketing. It's very simple. It's a very fun business model. It's very easy with Reels and TikTok and YouTube and all of these things that we have today to build an audience very quickly and start monetizing. And so we're going more mass market, and then we're going to take those people and level them up into our program where we'll get them to $200,000, $300,000 a year selling a full course. And then we've got our mastermind where we'll take them from 200, 300,000 to 1 to 2 million by building a team and building their back end and everything. Which it's funny, it's almost like the things that I do for people now and the offers that I sell are just mirror reflections of the lessons that I learned throughout these 4 or 5 years of being in business. And so if you tally up all the numbers, I've done just about 2.5 to like 2.7 million in total sales. And the crazy thing is I've kept a ton of it. I've invested a bunch of it into different things, put a bunch of it back into the business. It's been an incredible journey. And I think it's important that I ended off on a very positive note of, look, if you yourself are getting started in business, I have to tell you that it's a critically personal journey. There is no right or wrong way to do it. It really is just you versus you every day and deciding what your standard is. So don't try to get to where I am today by mirroring my moves, but try to figure out what the right moves are for you in your current state and then build from there. I'm getting married soon. I've got a lot of assets in the bank and investments and everything, and the business is great and all. But to be honest, if I didn't have the humility to accept where I am today, right now, instead of wishing I were somewhere else and just kind of getting a little depressed about it, I wouldn't have built what I've built today, and there's no way I could have the amount of impact and influence and everything that I have today. So I hope this has been a valuable video for you to watch. I hope you've enjoyed sort of soaking up my story and learning from what I've built and how I've built it and everything. And if you have enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a supportive comment because I'll be making tons more videos like this in the future, and I've got tons of content on my channel. You can literally scroll all the way back and see me like back in 2017 putting out videos to sell these courses and everything like that. So I've learned a lot, and I'm just trying to give all the lessons away and add a lot of value to your life and to your business by showing you what I've done that worked, what I've done that didn't work, what I did that didn't work, and hopefully that's worth a subscribe and tuning into my future videos. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.